Okay. Hi, everybody. And this is another video and quite a poignant one, which I wanted to cover. Now, I'm not going to go too long on it. I'm going to aim to keep it quite dense but also quite practical because these kinds of topics, when we're talking about pain, we're talking about power and other things that are a little bit more in cosmic with a K in terms of its nature, a bit more spiritual, the spiritual aspects of challenges in terms of what we go through, that can get quite deep. And it can also get a little bit etheric and ambiguous and confusing at times. So I'm going to aim to keep it very simple, very practical, but also very dense in terms of what I explain and its ability to have a positive influence on you and your life. And I am speaking from experience here in terms of having gone through quite a few painful experiences myself in my life, be them physical with physical injuries or emotional. I mean, I've gone through a whole gamut myself. I've gone through anxiety, depression, negative body image. I've had broken bones, beaten up and battered in martial arts, of which one trip required hospitalization. I've had multiple hospital trips for some stomach issues. I've had bad skin and breakouts from parasite and fungal infections. Uh, I, Emotional stuff with family, like up, down, left, right, and sideways. So I've been all over the place. And as I mentioned in my previous video about the goals for this channel, I would like to be a support for as many people as I can, sharing what I've learned through what I've experienced and lived through. Now, what I have experienced and lived through is by no means the worst, but it's also by no means the easiest. But it's what I lived through. So I have consciously endured that journey and starting this new chapter in my life in my 30s, now focusing on sharing what I've learned as well as experiencing, I'm going to talk about this particular topic. So, how to turn pain into power. And as you can see there, pain is an acronym. The first thing about turning pain into power is realizing what that acronym means. So, pain stands for prompting attention in the now. And this acronym came to me after listening to senior Czech faculty Matthew Walden, who's a dear mentor and just personal hero of mine, as well as one of my teachers, talk about how pain is like a finger prodding you in the present moment, letting you know that something's wrong. And that's also based on Paul Chek's saying and teaching on his concept of the pain teacher. Pain is a teacher. It's here to teach us things. It's here to let us know when we've gone off track, when we've done something a little bit outside of our capability, a little bit outside of what maybe we should have been doing. So if we're conscious to that, that is the first thing that we need to actually have in place in order to turn pain into power. Because when we're conscious of the things that are painful, then we get knowledge. When we have knowledge, we can apply that knowledge, and applied knowledge is what creates power, as Paul Chek says. Not knowledge is power. Once you apply the knowledge, then it's power. So that's the chain in terms of how we go from pain to power. Now, um, it's very, very easy when things are awful to get lost in the murk. However, the first thing is we need to be aware of that teaching that is in that moment. If we commit to that, no matter how bad it gets, we commit to that, we can then get on the road towards being more powerful. And we can learn more about ourselves as well in the moment. So, asking ourselves the question when we're in a painful situation, What is this experience here to teach me? Maybe someone's joints are just breaking down because they're just overtraining so much. However, they're trying to overtrain in order to compensate for some mental pain that they don't want to deal with, a relationship that's breaking down or something with a family member. What is this here to teach me? My joints are breaking down. This is unmanageable. I'm not enjoying life anymore. It's not fun. I've got adrenal fatigue. I can't sleep. What's going on? What is this here to teach me? And if you trace it back, all right, maybe I need to go say sorry. Maybe I need to go try and make amends. Maybe I need to, whatever it is, you can do the digging. But sometimes we need to be able to get past our ego and let our souls take charge. The soul's the big boy, but it's also not going to compete for attention. If the ego's not ready to get out of the way, it's not going to try and force it. It's just going to be like, all right, the soul's too mature to try and force anything. The ego's ready to kind of get out of the way and listen a little bit. Then we can get into some serious stuff. Then we can really get powerful. Then we can really get some self-knowledge going. Then we can really be capable of healing from the things that we really don't want to heal and facing the things that we really don't want to face. However, when we get to that place and we can do those without feeling petrified of doing so, what in life can hurt you? Things can be painful, sure, but it's not going to change the way that you walk in life or make you feel like you need to hide from anything. So, and this next thing is a quote that I learned from my Thai boxing teacher, who was my first mentor and just a dearly, dearly beloved person in my life, and will forever have a place in my heart forever for what he gave me and what I learned from him. After I broke my hand when I was 18, because I had an emotional moment and punched a door and broke my hand, I broke the fifth metacarpal at the knuckle and I dislocated it from the wrist. First and only time I've ever lost my temper, mind you. Never before, never since. I definitely learned that lesson the hard way. Thankfully I didn't hit anybody, but I punched a door because I couldn't control my emotions when I was 18. And he told me after that, Jacob, sometimes the most painful things in life teach us things we can't learn any other way. That was the only way that I could learn that lesson, to not lose your temper. Now, I'm not going to say I'm incapable of losing my temper. I'm just saying that since I was 18 and that moment, I've never lost my temper since, ever. Never before, never since. Sure, I've gotten angry here and there and things like that and frustrated and all of that, but never to the point where I was out of control. On account of that lesson. So, knowing that and having that clear in your mind all the time, just there, ready for when a situation pops up, every painful moment is just going to automatically be funneled through that pathway into that powerful position where the knowledge learned from the painful experience is applied in practical life. And that is what creates power, because that's what levels you up as a human. That's what allows you to be better, because you've applied the knowledge that you learned because you were conscious and you were thinking, all right, what is this here to tell me? What did I learn from this experience? Oh, that was not comfortable. What went wrong? What went wrong? What do I need to correct next time? And as Czech faculty Lee Brandon says, he said this in our integrated movement science level 1 course when a bunch of us were getting some of the daily homework wrong. He said, there's no such thing as failure, only feedback. And that is really important for this, because if pain can't actually, reflecting on a painful experience can't happen if you're judging yourself for having experienced something painful. Maybe you made a mistake and it caused some pain. If you judge yourself and you think that you're a failure, you think that you're not allowed to fail, you're not going to be able to interpret what you did and dispassionately analyze it. So that's another aspect. You need to actually give yourself the freedom to be human, to make a mistake so that you can learn the lesson and then learn the knowledge, then apply the knowledge and then become powerful. But if you judge yourself, you basically put a barrier up before you even walk down that road, and you can't even hit those marks and those points along the way. So moving on swiftly, because I'm aware that I don't want this video to be too long, but I want it to be dense. Know that you are a soulful, divine being. And that means your self-esteem stretches all the way to God. Not this little finite being who is kind of feeble and frail and fleshy and bony, and like the winds of the world and life and all of that can just give you a little poof and off the chair you go. If it blows you over easily, then one painful moment can just wreck you for the rest of your life. Now, I do not say that in a judgmental way, because we're human, we're allowed to experience pain, and we're allowed to feel pain, and we're allowed to be human and feel, oh, that was not nice, I didn't like that, that felt a bit traumatic. However, when we know that we are a soulful divine being and our self-esteem stretches all the way to God, which is not some anthropomorphized, like bearded person in the sky. God is what everything came out of. It's the loving compassion and love that created everything that there is. That is the kind of just resolute strength of a backbone that we have. Like, look at a planet that gets smashed by a meteor. When we're talking about a planetary backbone, a meteor can slam into a planet and it will eventually come back after a certain amount of time. That is the kind of energetic backbone that we have because of the kind of soulful being that we are. You can't break that kind of a backbone. You can feel human and feel intense levels of pain, but when you understand the soulful nature of this human experience and this human being, keyword being, you know that there's an inner resoluteness to you that can handle so much more. And when you combine that with those other points that I just talked about, now we've got a recipe for some serious, serious staying power. And so the ability to not care what other people think about you and what your dreams are and what you want to do with your life and how you see the world, which is not arrogance, because knowing that you're soulful means that their way of viewing the world, they're entitled to that as well. They're allowed to be human and view the world the way that they choose. Doesn't mean they have to view it the way that you choose. You may not agree, but you're both allowed to have your positions and disagree with each other. But the soulful being will still have compassion for the person who, even if they don't agree with their position, because they'll understand the stage in life that they're at. So, moving on, do not allow your ego to engage in the practice of wound. Speaking wound, woundology, talking about wound in a way where I'm the wounded, this, I'm the that, I'm the. You're allowed to like process what you are feeling, but do not allow yourself to live in the past and deny your true nature. And this is also an aspect of kind of like the existential therapists like Viktor Frankl and what they spoke about. Like Viktor Frankl was in the concentration camps during World War II, and he wrote in his book Man's Search for Meaning about how no matter what happens, how you feel, you have control over. Nobody can take that away from you. No experience, no situation, no person, no thing, no place, no nothing. ultimately that power resides within you. How you feel, that power resides within you. Never forget that. Never forget that. So I learned this and had it hammered home to me yesterday in the workshop that I went to, where Caroline Mice, who is another personal hero of mine, was talking about her interpretation of self-esteem. Now, when you hear this woman speak, then you really start to understand what a spiritual self-esteem sounds like and how it behaves and how it acts. It is made of absolute unbreakable stuff, yet has a compassion so big it encompasses the entire world. And that is the kind of self-esteem we're talking about. But part of the way to get to that level of self-esteem is do not allow your ego to engage in the practice of wound, identifying with being the wounded this, being the that. And that's also an archetype. That's also an archetypal pattern. The wounded child, we all have a wounded child in us. The wounded victim, the wounded this. We all have an aspect of that to ourselves. But the way that we come out of it is we accept that we have it, we meet with it, and we decide that that's not what's happening anymore. That is not what's that's not what's happening anymore. And we remember the kind of soulful being that we are. We're not going to live in the past. We start living in the past like, oh no, the past was this, was that. Nope. We're not doing that anymore. Nope. We're catching ourselves. The present moment right now is not what the past is. The past was the past. We keep the memory, but we don't live in the past. Living in the past is like carrying a big bag of bricks on your back. Even if those bricks are made of gold because your past was amazing, it's still going to slow you down. You have to drop that bag of bricks in order to move forward at full speed. Living in the past is that way. It's holding onto a bag of bricks. You got to drop those bricks. Doesn't mean you don't remember what it was like to carry them at a certain period of time, but in the present moment, they're not serving you very well. Only the memory of them and the lessons you learned from carrying them will serve you well. And as a result of living in the past, it's very easy to deny your true nature. If you think that you're wounded, you're this, you're that, I'm the wounded this, I'm the wounded that, very easy to deny your true nature. The ego's taking control there. It's dominating. The soul's just sitting back and being quiet and patient. It's like, oh, right, they're not ready. I'll just wait. The ego, the ego is a little bit loud at the moment. I'm not going to try and compete. I'm too mature for that. So when the ego kind of pipes down a little bit, and then the soul can really get involved, and now we've got that spiritual backbone starting to establish. This is also what Jung talked about in terms of the individuation process, where the ego identifies with the soul as opposed to thinking it's the only thing that exists. And this leads us on to a quote from Ken Wilber, where he talked about suffering equals pain plus avoidance. If you avoid the pain, you're going to suffer. If you feel the pain and go into it and learn from it, you're not going to suffer because you're not avoiding it. As challenging as that is, but if you remember who you are as a soulful divine being, you got that spiritual backbone, you can take it. You don't need to avoid it. You can take it if you need to. So you go in there, learn that lesson, you come out, you apply that knowledge, and now you become powerful. Now you leveled up a gear. Doesn't mean you go seeking out painful things, but if they come, you don't avoid them. You go right into them and you find out why it happened and learn that lesson, apply that knowledge, and now you can become powerful. Now you've got a spiritual autonomy and you're not afraid of anything when that happens. There's always going to be levels to this. Like there are things, it doesn't mean being silly, like, or having an awareness of danger, but it just means you're not going to be afraid of things that you don't need to be afraid of. You're not going to feel slowed down. You're not going to feel afraid of someone else's opinion. It doesn't matter if 1,000 people think that you're silly for knowing that you're spiritual, knowing that you have a soul. Doesn't matter if 1 million people think that you're an idiot for doing that. You know what that truth is. You know what that truth feels like inside of you. And as a result, you don't need anyone else to validate you. You know what your purpose is. You know why you're here. You know why you're on this earth. You know what your purpose is when it comes to contributing to the human family. And for many people to admit that is quite scary, because at the same time, when that happens, you're sort of out there on your own. Because in the grand scheme of things, not many people are singing from that hymn sheet, to use a more Christian kind of analogy. um, but ultimately, when you know that you have a soul, doesn't matter if there's no one around, you're never alone. Being human, it's always nice to have people around. But even if there are periods where you're by yourself for a long time, you can still handle that. Even if that's painful, you're not going to avoid it because you know that your soul's always there. So, final point, remember that the universe is law. The universe exists and goes according to law. It's not personal. And this is explained by the Hermetic principles in the Kabbalion. And the law of rhythm speaks to a pendulum swing of life. So you recognize your true self-esteem, and that pendulum will swing right out of your pain. It'll go one way. All right. The soul may even guide you into a painful experience so that you can learn the lesson. Now that you've learned that lesson, you've lived through it, you actually have the authentic substance to now share with other people. And that substance is the power that comes from the application of the knowledge you learned from that painful experience. And that pendulum swing, as per stated in the law of rhythm, will swing you right out of your pain into your power. And you will then start to share that with the world in some form. Maybe that's in a product or a service. Maybe that's in coaching. Maybe that's in writing. Maybe that's in art and painting and dance and athletics and what you want to represent as those things. But the soulful nature is a compassionate one. So on the other end of learning these lessons, there's a natural want by the soul to share it with other people so that we can all grow together. So going on to the images finally, the pain part is the trials and challenges aspect of the hero's journey. We do not escape it. There's going to be an abyss, there's going to be a death, there is going to be a rebirth, and like the phoenix, we're going to rise up from the ashes again, and there's going to be a transformation. And then we're going to make that return with the wisdom that we learned, which is the power that we now have. We're going to go back home, we're going to share it with people. And when we get to that stage, and we're truly rooted in the essence of who we are, that soulful divine being with that spiritual backbone, then we can start to be how Jung talked about how he wanted to be in the Red Book, where he said, I want to exist from my own force, like the sun, which gives light and does not suck light. Then we're the sun for other people. We're a beacon. We're a generator. We are the thing that other people that are still in their trials phase can look to as personal heroes, as someone who's gone through the fire of the journey and has the wisdom to help us through. And then when we go through, we become the same thing and we can help other people. And so it goes. And we just have an entire lineage of helping people. And generation after generation just gets better and better and better. And the more people we have doing this, the better it is for everybody. And we just build a more conscious, resolute, robust, and strong, morally strong as well. I'm not just talking strength as in the ability to destroy things. I'm talking moral strength. I'm talking the strength to not destroy things. I'm talking the strength to, just because you can doesn't mean you should. I'm talking about the strength where you can lie, but you don't lie. You can cheap it a bit here, but you don't. You can shortcut it here, but you don't. You can be a little less honest with this person, but you be honest anyway. You can, uh, like, you can go date this person, but you're not really into them. But but because you're not really into them, you decide probably best that they should find someone who really is into them. I'm just going to leave them be. I'll go find someone. I'll go find someone else. I'm not going to string people along. Every single act that we do comes from our very highest self. That's what Ken Wilber talked about. And that's what he said was such an important thing. Because as we do that, we carve a pathway into the future that other people can follow. It's an actual structure that other people can inhabit. It's a new possibility that other people can now embody as well. Just how, like, the first person to do anything, after someone does it, loads of people start doing it. They've now created a new structure that other people can embody and inhabit. Our behavior is like this too. So going through this process, we come out with the wisdom, we now have the power, and now we know how important it is to make sure every single act that we do comes from our very highest self. So that is how to turn pain into power in a nutshell. So I hope you've enjoyed that. I'm really enjoying these few little videos that I'm doing, and I am really, really excited to just share more on this YouTube channel and support you the very best that I possibly can. So if you have questions, drop them in the comments. I will reply as much as I possibly can. If you've got video suggestions, put them in there. If you want to message me on social media or on Instagram at Jacob Modak, message me. If you want to do some coaching, like if you've got some struggles and you want to do some consistent coaching, DM me, email me, reach out to me. I am here to support and make use of me. Make use of me. I really am here to help the very best that I can. And I've learned from some of the best teachers in the world already. And I have a lot to share. And it would be an absolute honor and a privilege to support you going through your challenges too. And I'm looking forward to building this YouTube channel and just building this community, because it's not just private coaching that I enjoy doing. I would like to build this out into workshops as well. So I want you to be able to trust that you can come to this channel, you can come to me, and you can find the support that you need. This is why I'm here. This is my purpose, and this is my return through my hero's journey. So thank you very much for taking the time to listen, and yeah, see you in the next one.